Hi, everybody, and welcome to the SAP Press Book Club. And so we have a great book today, and it is SAP UI5. A little technical, but it's going to be fun. So I'm Kendall Tyler. I am your host of the SAP Press Book Club. And so we are going to interview these authors who joined us into the SAP world. I was just chatting with them earlier about how they entered into the SAP world, which is really cool. So anyway, let's first do intros and who everybody is here that we have on the call. So let's take it over to, let's start with Daniel.
Yeah, thank you very much. So my name is Daniel. I'm a general manager at CloudDNA. And back then I started as a UI developer in Fiori. So I'm started at the UI part, and more I get to know also to ABAP development, other service development, so to become a full stack developer in the end.
Excellent. Go ahead, Rene.
Yeah, hello, thanks. My name is Rene. I'm team lead at CloudDNA. And yeah, basically same as Daniel, I've also started with UI5 UI part, and then went over to ABAP and all data service development as well.
And last but not least, we're going to call him Max or MO or Maximilian. What do you want to go by today?
Oh, Max is fine. Thanks for having us. Yeah, my name is Maximilian Olzinger. I'm also, same as the other guys, from the same company. I'm their team lead from the full stack development team, and I'm delightful to be a part of today's interview.
Excellent. Well, I'm so thrilled about this because we had talked about like a full stack developer in the past, about what it actually entails. Besides, what do you do, ABAP? What's your next step, and how do you become a full stack developer? So when I got your book, I was like, "Yay! This is a really cool topic." And so let's I have some questions here for y'all because I know everybody's probably wondering. Because the first time that I saw this, I was like, what is this? I was like, what is UI5? And then I was like, oh, wait a minute. This actually has a lot to do with SAP. So let's start here. First, Daniel, why don't you try this one? What is SAP UI5 and how is it used?
Yeah. So SAP UI Development Toolkit for HTML5. So in short, SAP UI5. It's a client-side JavaScript framework developed by SAP for building responsive single-page web applications. It fits within the SAP Fiori ecosystem, and it runs on modern browser and every device which supports a browser. And it can be used by developers to build their own business applications. SAP also do provide some components, so they do not need to start from scratch, but use some UI controls like tables, charts, and forms. Also non-visual components such as data models and formatters. And in the end, JavaScript, why it's JavaScript-based framework, because JavaScript files need to be loaded by this application at startup. So as also SAP does provide all these files which are necessary in JavaScript. And it's a client-side framework. It's also important to know. So with SAP UI5, everything built up itself within the browser at the client side. And this is also an important topic to know and technology to know.
Do you have to be on S4 on-prem or S4 cloud, public, private, or can you be ECC and still do that?
No, it can be definitely an ECC. It can, SAP Fiori and SAP UI5, the framework itself has been around since 2013, 2012. So when really customers can use it to build their user interfaces. Back then, S4HANA was not there yet, but in the end, it can be used by an older business suite, a newer business suite, on-premise, in the cloud, and also in a non-SAP scenarios.
That's cool. So anything pretty much that you're going to connect to some kind of web application. Is that kind of what?
Yeah.
I'm trying to dummy it down for everybody here. That's just kind of like, it sounds like so complicated, but sometimes when you actually break it down, it's like, oh, I understand that. So what do we do with Max? What are the main differences between SAP UI5 and other web frameworks?
Well, thanks for asking.
Yeah.
SAP UI5 is mainly designed for SAP enterprise applications, especially Fiori apps that are directly connected to an S4 system, for example, to an ERP system, to your BTP and so on. Whereas other frameworks like React, Angular, Vue, and whatever there is, they are more general purpose and used for all kinds of web applications and that are not directly tied to SAP. SAP UI5 includes a large set of ready-to-use enterprise-grade components like tables, forms, charts, etc., that follow the SAP Fiori design guidelines. And what's also really neat is the integrated support for the OData protocol, one of the main protocols that SAP uses to talk from a client to a server and vice versa. Other frameworks, on the other hand, are more lightweight. Maybe they need third-party libraries. Maybe you need to pay something for these libraries and so on in order to build a UI that looks good, so to say. You mainly use SAP UI5 if you're building SAP Fiori apps, and you use other applications if you build more lightweight applications and so on.
So you pretty much, you can use this on any area within SAP. So like success factors, not just core ERP, but also like maybe CX, or is that right? Anything that...
Yeah, the only thing you need is a web server, and then you can run SAP UI5. There's also an open source variant of the SAP UI5 language. So pretty much wherever you want, you can run it.
That's interesting. So how does SAP UI5 structure its components?
It structures its components via so-called modules. The modules are the fundamental concept of the SAP UI5 framework that allows you to break down your coding, your UI, and so on into smaller, more manageable and reusable pieces of code that help you to structure everything more or less, make it easier to understand, maintain, and debug. And you can use these modules to build your applications, to build your logic. They are, as I said, reusable. They enhance a little bit the performance because you only need to load them whenever you need. And they are then combined into libraries that are already pre-built and contain basically everything that you need to build your applications. And they are already shipped out to us.
Interesting. So, and also everybody that, if you have questions, please put it in the chat and I'll get them answered by these guys. So if you do have questions while we're going along, just make sure that you do put your question in the chat and we'll take care of that for you. So, so Rene, why don't we get you involved in this? So in SAP UI5 development, both JavaScript and TypeScript can be used, but does it make a difference on which way to go?
Yeah, as you mentioned, JavaScript can be used and TypeScript can also be used, and yes, it makes a difference. So TypeScript basically is a superset of JavaScript, but has more functionalities such as type safety. It offers better auto-completion and it's easier to maintain compared to plain JavaScript. So from my point of view, the way to go is TypeScript, at least if you're developing new applications. So sometimes it's necessary to use JavaScript, for example, for legacy applications, for old code. But if you're developing new applications, the way to go, from my point of view, is TypeScript.
So when you guys, and I know that you guys kind of walked into SAP from, a whole different world. What type of background do you think someone needs in order to be able to do this? Like, where do they come from? Because we talk about upscaling, like learning, like how do I learn something new in order to, be relevant still, you know, so that you're not like, you know, oh, my job just went away. No, you need to continue to learn. What kind of background do you think benefits from SAP guys in the, you know, in the past, whatever they've done? What do you see as, you know, this type of skill that would benefit? Obviously developers, but
Yeah, so I think the main target group who really benefits from this SAP UI5 Fiori world are definitely the newcomers who can really acquire these skills on a yeah, really like a greenfield implementation, let's say it like that. So here in Austria, we do have technical colleges where you learn, of course, also software development. We do have also the universities, applied sciences, and so on. And their JavaScript is yeah, standard. It's already state of the art. So therefore, all these newcomers, of course, have an easy step into this new world. But when you do already know developing applications, business applications with ABAP, for example, you know all these important parts from the main development process. And there are a lot of blogs, there are a lot of JavaScript pages, info pages, help pages where you can, of course, learn and acquire these new skills.
Can you use Python?
Not for SAP UI5 development. Not in the front end part. No.
No, what? So did you guys find it difficult to step into the SAP world? I mean, were you guys kind of like, what in the world? SAP? What? Or
No,
was
I
it just
think
like, oh, wow, this is something cool? I mean, what?
I think SAP itself is a complex topic, but SAP UI5 compared to other frameworks for web development is quite easy to learn, I would say.
Really?
Of course, it can get complex, or it gets complex by the time, but the basics are quite easy to learn, I would say.
Interesting. What has been the most interesting project that you guys have done using this? I mean, is there anything that you're like, wow, that actually was really cool? Like, look what we did.
Well,
Maximilian.
as the landscape of SAP customers is quite large and is in all fields of technology and so on, I think it is quite interesting that you can, if you are a Fiori developer, do something in the line of defense. You can do something in maybe oil and refinery. You can do in the banking sector a lot of applications. So that there is so much use cases for building applications that it never gets really boring. So it's all quite interesting.
Can you actually use SAP UI5 without BTP, or do you have to have it?
No,
you can?
It is not necessary to have the BTP. You can use SAP UI5 without basically anything. It depends where you want to run the application then. It is quite useful to have a business technology platform if you want to run your application there, but it is sufficient enough if you have just an SAP S/4HANA on-premise, if you have a cloud ERP, if you have standalone server. So yeah.
So if I may step in here, so the SAP system with SAP UI5 serves not only as a platform where data storage, business logic, and service development come from, but it also acts as a content delivery network for this framework. So where the framework collects all these JavaScript files I mentioned before from the SAP system. But SAP itself, they also offer public content delivery networks, which can be used in a non-SAP scenario, for example. So if you really want to host your SAP UI5 application standalone outside of an SAP landscape, it's also possible on some more generic web server and connect to this public content delivery network, and you're good to go.
Is there material on Learning Hub for this, or is this pretty much like this is why you wrote the book, because there just wasn't any information out there?
So there are definitely some Learning Hub contents. There are also live sessions if you do have the Learning Hub subscription on these topics. And there are also dedicated SAP trainings. For example, the UX 400 is a standard training. And so I do think that there are also contents within the SAP Learning Hub.
You know, I love the fact that you guys wrote the book because it kind of gives you your perspective of how you know, kind of how you view it, not just a technical document that just says, you know, do this, do that, whatever. You kind of give it more perspective of kind of like, you know, make it real kind of thing. You know, so if an app is developed using VS Code, can it be moved to BTP in BAS? That's one of the questions.
Yeah. So maybe let's start from another point of view. So what's BAS? What is VSC? So now we are talking really about the development tools which can be used within the SAP UFF development. So in the past, we used integrated development environments within our SAP system, like the ABAP Workbench, to develop applications. And now we need development environments which are loosely coupled from the SAP system. And this is SAP Business Application Studio, so BAS, and Visual Studio Code. And the real difference is that BAS is a cloud-based development environment running in the BTP, which is a ready-to-use development environment. And of course, it requires licensing and the proper connectivity from the BTP to your SAP system, but there you are ready to go. And Visual Studio Code is a development environment provided by Microsoft, and with some local extensions, you are able to develop within this generic development environment, also to develop SAP UFF applications.
So you don't have to be licensed? You don't have to license this?
No, Visual Studio Code itself, not. There are also some drawbacks. So licensing is one point, but developers need to prepare their machines to use Visual Studio Code because you need so-called Node.js, which need to be installed. You need to be able to run scripts, for example. Sometimes firewall settings need to be changed in order to get all these public modules you need to develop. But then you're good to go. It's free to use, and you can develop on your local computer these applications. And to come back to this question, so because this happens outside of SAP, source code management becomes the developer's responsibility. And that's where Git comes into this whole topic. So now we are maintaining the source code on let's say on a server, on a shared repository, and therefore it do not make any difference if you are developing in Visual Studio Code or in BAS, or if you are switching between these two, because the source code is not anymore on SAP system, not anymore. It's also not on the developers' machines, but they are on a shared folder, which is called Git and Git repositories.
Oh, okay. So are you using the GitHub Copilot when programming UI5 apps in the VS Code?
Not yet. Of course, we tried, and we tried also.
Everybody tries to AI with everything. It's all hard.
Yeah, I think it's more playing around with it and checking what's possible by now, but really programming.
We were just talking about that earlier, which is so bizarre. You know, we were talking about AI coding and stuff, and you know, I didn't realize how specific you had to be in order to actually do something, because if you're not, it does jump around and you're like, wait a minute, that's not what I wanted, and nothing seems to work. So it is very specific. I guess just like writing lines of code, you know, you have to understand what's going on. Now, if you're an ABAPer, so we have a guy on a line, he's a 20-year ABAPer. This is where we were talking about like upskilling kind of thing, how to be a full stack developer, because that's kind of the whole idea here. So he wants to know if he's only been doing ABAP and he knows ABAP very well, but he doesn't know any other programming. So how do I start the Fiori, the UI5, or are there any no code, low code options coming, or do I need to learn UI5?
Well, I wouldn't really recommend to start directly with SAP UI5 freestyle programming, so to say, because you need a certain skill set in order to do that, and in order to have that skill set, you need to invest a lot of time and understanding of things that can't really be applied indirectly. So what we usually recommend is to start with SAP Fiori Elements, especially if you're an ABAP developer, because SAP Fiori Elements is the low-code equivalent to SAP UI5. It is heavily built upon the OData hierarchy, the OData protocol, your backend, and so on. And if you are already a backend developer, you can build your backend, you can make certain annotations in your backend that are then applied to the Fiori Elements application. So you get to I'd say beautiful UI relatively quickly without the needs to understand JavaScript, model view controller patterns, modules, and so on. And we actually did this with a few of our customers who are heavily into the ABAP stuff and are short of retirement. So, and they said, I don't want to learn UI5, but I want to build applications. And then we said, use Fiori Elements because you're already an ABAP developer, you know your backend stuff. So that quite helps.
For everybody, back-end developer, front-end developer, kind of give everybody a little bit, because sometimes in ABAP world, we don't know what's the difference between those two. So go ahead. Who would love to answer that question? It's so simple.
Yeah, okay, I'll take it. The backend developer is basically the guy who's implementing the OData service. So either with ABAP, RESTful application programming model, or also with the cloud application programming model. So this is basically application logic, business logic, this part, and the front-end developer itself is the one who's implementing the user interfaces with SAP UI5 or with the low-code approaches SAP offers.
Gotcha. So can you use JavaScript and CDS together?
Yes.
Oh, so, there you go, guys. That was one of the questions here. So let's see. How about, okay, Daniel, how does the development process differ in terms of development tools compared to older technologies? Like, you know, a little bit more like on GitHub and all that.
Yeah. So these two development environments we already discussed, SAP Application Studio and Visual Studio Code. And there are pros and cons of each side. So you really need to decide on yourself or within your organization. But with Git, we need Git as a source code management tool, because now we are really loosely coupled from the SAP system, and within SAP Fiori and all these new UI stuff we are creating, they do not take care anymore about the source code. And that's where Git is used, or it's a recommendation. And maybe to elaborate on Git. So it's a distributed source code management system, which was originally developed by the Linux mastermind, Linus Torvalds. And the story goes that when the Linux team lost access to their previous version control system because of cancellation as an open source tool, Linus created Git in just about 2 weeks.
Isn't that amazing?
So that's the story. And now over the years, it of course became the standard for modern software development, and it's also part of it. And now we are using Git also to maintain our SAP UI5 coding. And there we can use self-hosted servers, or to use such cloud-based platforms like you mentioned, GitHub, for example, or GitLab or Bitbucket, which are more or less Git as a service offerings in the end. But additionally, Git is not anymore just a source code tool with all these tools and collaboration tools such issue tracking, code reviews, automated pipelines, and so on. They are supporting the whole development process of such applications.
So which one is it? Git Bash or GitHub for desktop would be recommended?
So, Rene?
Preference?
Yeah.
And just...
Yeah, to be honest, I can't speak a recommendation for this one because I'm just using the Git interface in VS Code or also the command line.
So when you guys are doing, you know, we always talk about like clean core, make it clean, keep it clean. Do you ever encounter customers where they're like, really don't want to use any of that open source or free stuff, or, you know, I mean, do you have that experience, or do you guys like sit down with them and say, let me explain kind of what this is all about? No?
So maybe my idea on this, when it comes to SAP UI5, it's of course it has something to do with all this clean core stuff, but in the end it's just the user interface which is used, and more important is what you have in your backend, and that this is clean core, that you have your backend enhancements and you do not do any modifications. On the front-end stuff, you can do easily your own custom UI, and that's also what we are more or less explaining also in the book. But within the book, there is also all the information you get about so-called adaptation projects. So when it comes to the extension part of some SAP Fiori standard UIs.
We have a question here about, do the authors have experience with, is it Neptune or ABAP to UI5, and what is their opinion on these solutions?
Well, these are, if I recall correctly, these are frameworks that you can use that are ABAP-based and that generate then Fiori applications or SAP UI5 applications from ABAP source code. They can be used, they have their purpose, but for really building modern applications that utilize all of the stuff that an SAP S/4HANA offers, I'd recommend to use stuff like the ABAP RESTful application programming model and things like that, because they are a little bit more streamlined, they take into the HANA capabilities, they are really integrated with Fiori elements. So I would recommend to use to use those frameworks if you build new applications, and not really use Neptune and so on for doing new modern stuff, but they still have the purpose.
So how can the UI5 developers integrate their backend solutions into a UI5 application?
Yeah, typically developers integrate their backend solutions via interfaces. This can be either OData services or other REST interfaces. So if you're using a SAP system as a backend, then the way to go is the OData service. And of course, you can also integrate some third-party services, which are plain REST APIs, for example. And that's also a possibility. But you then have to differentiate in the UI5 app itself, because if you're using OData services as your backend service, then there are OData models provided by SAP, which can be used and which also offer many functionalities such as data binding and all these kind of stuff. And on the other hand, if you're using third-party interfaces, then you'll need to use the JSON model, for example, or other REST clients in the UI. But the way to go, if you have a SAP system with an OData service, would be the OData model. And I think it's the most common approach.
It is. Okay. So what components make the UI5 framework suited for SAP-based enterprise application?
Well, SAP UI5 is ideal, I'd say, for SAP enterprise applications because it includes, I say, 4 things. It has a complete Fiori-compliant UI component library. It has a native OData integration, as Rene already said, with SAP backends. It has a built-in model view controller architecture. This is the main architecture of the application. You have translation capabilities, security features, and so on. And one nice thing is also the seamless Fiori theming integration, where you as a customer can build your own corporate branding themes that are then automatically applied to your application if you run it in the SAP Fiori Launchpad. And it can run in the Launchpad, it can run standalone. So wherever you have your enterprise architecture running, SAP UI5 can find its way.
So pretty much anywhere that somebody wants to run a Fiori app or some kind of external web-based application into SAP or out of SAP? Does it go both ways, or what is the most common thing? Data in, data out, or?
I'm not quite sure if I understood
the
question.
Okay. So what I was thinking was like, if I am, let's say I'm in finance, and I'm like, I really would like somebody to, do a certain task, and I want to build a Fiori app, just something Fiori-wise that they can do that, but I want to brand it so it makes it a little different. So is this kind of where you guys come in, where y'all can kind of make it,
Yeah, for example, so what customers can do is they can enhance their applications to their specific needs. For example, custom actions, custom UI elements in already existing applications, their custom branding and so on, so that they have their look and feel in their SAP world. And they also can build SAP UI5 applications as an outside view, for example, so they can build a customer portal, deploy it to the business technology platform, and then their customers can access the UI5 applications, the business data throughout the business technology platform, for example.
Interesting. I know, because I was thinking like if I was a business and I wanted to do like selling something on the internet or whatever, and I wanted to be very specifically branded towards me and not look like everybody else's, kind of tool that they have out there. Would that be kind of more of where you guys kind of come in?
Yeah, it can be done, but an SAP Fiori application will always look something like an SAP Fiori application. Like we know, you could rework the entire style sheets and so on, but this is rarely done. But it can be done.
That's okay. So in is it RAP? Is that how you say it, or?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a question for you guys. The BO can be manipulated using EML. Can it also be done in SAP UI5 as well?
Yes. So a business object that is based upon the ABAP RESTful application program model is mainly built in ABAP. So you can consume it in ABAP, in your SAP system and so on. But you can also make it available to the outside world, so to say. So you use the OData protocol to build a RESTful web service that provide you the consummation of this business object, which can then be consumed in SAP UI5 application. And like Rene said, with the OData model, you can then create new entries of your business objects, manipulate your business object, delete it, update it, read it, and so on.
Excellent. Here's another question for you guys. When providing UI5 apps on mobile devices, can we go for the Fiori Launchpad in BTP in MS Intune container? Or is it better to use SAP Start Native application?
So I do not have any experience on the Microsoft Intune, but I can definitely say that is a really good working when you use SAP Build Workzone Standard Edition. And with SAP Build Workzone, you have a more or less Launchpad in the cloud, SAP Fiori Launchpad in the cloud. And within this Build Workzone, it's easy to give access to your applications deployed to the BTP and also deployed on an SAP system. For example, S/4HANA on-premise or Cloud ERP or something like that. And there is this mobile start, which is and can be downloaded from the native application store like App Store on iOS and also on Android or from the Play Store. And you connect your native SAP mobile start that is Build Workzone. And so these applications can also be accessed from a mobile device. And that's only what I can really say that it's really good working, and I can recommend because we are using it too. And this good thing about SAP Build Workzone is that applications, Fiori applications you deployed on your SAP S/4HANA system, they do not need to be replicated and copied and deployed to the BTP, but there is this so-called content federation. So this Build Workzone really loads your SAP UI5 application to the BTP at runtime, and so it can be accessed from outside, from the browser, but also from your mobile device.
Interesting. Love that. So what are the different development approaches that SAP UI5 offers, such as like low-code and pro-code options?
Yeah. So on the one hand, we have the pro-code development, also called freestyle development, which is basically plain SAP UI5 with either TypeScript or JavaScript. And this gives you the most flexibility. And on the other hand, we have the low-code approach, as Max already said, Fiori elements. And this allows you to create applications with minimal coding, but of course you don't have that much of flexibility as with pro-code. And as a so-called, I would say, in-between solution, so in order to combine the best of both worlds, you can use the flexible programming model, which allows you to code freestyle, but also use the templates provided in low code. And yeah, I would say these are the three approaches.
So how does SAP Fiori design principles influence SAP UI5 app development?
Depends what you want to build, because if you build an SAP UI5 application, it is not automatically an SAP Fiori application. And it is only an SAP Fiori application if it follows the design guidelines and the design principles provided by this design language. So if you want to build a Fiori application, then the design principles heavily influence you, because you need to know them, you need to understand them, and you need to know how you can apply them. So developers normally, when they're building SAP UI5 applications, have always in one tab open the environment, for example, and in another tab they have opened the Fiori design guidelines. And whenever they are building something and creating something, they check the things that they did with the SAP Fiori design guidelines. So they should and can influence you heavily.
Interesting.
But you can get rid of all this stuff if you go for low-code development. So if you are using SAP Fiori elements, you do not really need to know how these guidelines influence your application, because you're using a predefined template by SAP. You are just adding your data and your annotations to build it up at runtime, but they are also already predefined with all this stuff. And so low-code to pro-code, as Maximilian mentioned, is also an important, and at pro-code, you definitely need to know about all this.
So is pro-code, and is there a need for pro-code?
I would say yes, because pro-code development remains essential. So SAP UFF freestyle development, like Rene mentioned, is the pro-code development approach. So you are really building up the application, you have full control, about the application architecture, the UI, the application logic. You have the flexibility to meet complex and custom business requirements.
Mhm.
In contrast, SAP Fiori Elements follows this low-code approach. You are using predefined templates, and I often explain it that Fiori Element is a pre-built application with a lot of built-in functionality, and through annotations, you decide which features you want to activate, let's say it like that. But in the end, and this is important to know, that Fiori Elements has SAP UI5 as the underlying core, as the core technology. So if you know pro-code development, then it will be easily for you to use SAP Fiori Elements, but also to extend and enhance these applications. And therefore, pro-code skills and knowledge will be helpful, even though if you're going for low-code or no-code apps.
What about testing? What tools do y'all use for testing?
Well, we have different types of testing applications available. There's also a little pyramid that is described by SAP on their API reference. Basically, on the basis, what you can do is you can test the JavaScript or TypeScript source code with unit testing. There's, for example, QUnit that you can use, where you can test the application's logic solely on what does a method do, what does it return, and so on. So you can do that, but you can also further enhance it to test the UI, the thing that the user sees. For example, is there a button? Can you click on the button? Is the image there, and so on? And for that, you can use, for example, one-page acceptance tests. There's a framework called OPA5 that you can use, where you can then not only test if something is there, but also if it works like it used to, or like it should. So yeah, you can test code, you can test the UI, but unfortunately in the real world, testing, especially in SAP UI5, is rarely done.
Really? Just
Yeah, because
users?
it costs time and money.
That's true. Let's just run it and see what they think. That's what I would.
Yeah.
Did it work? I don't know. But
Yeah.
you know, it's interesting because people are asking about like, can you learn from your book about how to develop Fiori apps? Is that what this is, or is it really kind of like a mixed combination between the two?
Yeah, but we take regards, and we also mention a lot of times the SAP Fiori design guidelines. For example, when we talk about specific controls like UI elements, then we also talk about how SAP says that you should use them, or how you could use them in order to be compliant with the Fiori design guidelines. So yeah, it helps you to build Fiori-like apps, but for applications like Fiori elements and so on, there are other books that go or that take a deep dive into Fiori elements topics, because we take more of a deep dive into pro code development with SAP UI5 in regards to the Fiori design guidelines.
We have a question here that's a little off topic, but let's see what you guys think. So we have someone here that is who wants to start to develop SAP UI5 and SAP Fiori add-ons for SAP Business One. I don't know if you guys have ever been exposed to that, but he's talking about more about SQL plus HANA, and he has with a deep skill in .NET, MS Visual Studio developing. How would he start the path to learn this? I mean, where should he, what's his learning path? First, get off Business One. Go something cool.
I don't know.
You can develop, like you said, it doesn't have to be on SAP, right? You can develop this completely off the.
I think the question is really to develop, I think, add-ons and for the development environment itself, if I understood it correctly.
Yeah.
And we just really focus on not to develop add-ons to development environments, but really to develop the business applications itself, running either on SAP, S/4HANA, or in the BTP, or in a non-SAP scenario, but not really about developing such add-ons.
Okay, so I got a really good one for you guys. So AI is the topic of the day, and let's talk about Joule. So, how does this play into the whole SAP UI5? How does Joule, come in, combine? How do you guys, what is your thoughts?
Yep. Yeah, I think Joule plays a big role already because it allows you to speed up or accelerate the development process. But at least from my point of view, you need to know the basics and evaluate if the code is good or not, or if it's or if it can be used for the purpose. But yeah, it's quite powerful. I've played around a little bit with it, with the cloud application program model. It really allows you to do great applications with less effort. Basically, just with a picture of a mock-up, and yeah, and you can also use the documentation with the MCP servers. So yes, it plays a big role, but the
So kind of like
developer
more
itself
putting
knows.
together the project in the beginning phases. Is that kind of like for the customer, like you're like, they want to do something, you're like, oh, let me kind of mock something up. Is that where you kind of pull Joule into play? And then after that, then they're like, oh yeah, I like that idea. Then you guys really actually go in and
Could
do
be a
the
scenario,
rest.
Yeah,
yeah.
but if you're running in the right direction from the start, then I think you'll get in trouble. So I think it's important that the developer, at least the one who's prompting, knows what Joule is creating.
So like
Oh,
really
yeah,
a productivity tool, or
Yeah.
so you really speed up your development. You know what you want to do, but you do not want to code everything yourself. So now you're using also Joule, and you somehow know what's the correct result might be, but you are using these circles with the prompts in order to get there. But I think if you really do not have any clue of all this stuff, but it's like, I think also with other technologies, not only SAP UI5, then it will be more try and error.
Oh yeah.
Also with AI.
I mean, especially with AI, and you like say, oh, I want to do this, and then it codes all this code. If you don't understand the code, then you're like, is that really gonna work? I mean, you really kind of need to understand the back end. It's kind of like it just helps you along.
Yeah, but maybe in a few years we will see.
Wouldn't that be amazing?
Yeah.
You guys would be like, coding, what? No, we just type it in. What? Create this for us. So how can developers enhance their applications to fit the customer's unique needs? I would love to come up with a scenario for y'all. I'd be like, I would like
Yeah.
purple unicorn, what?
Well, they have three different possibilities to do that. First of all, normal users that work with your application can use personalization, which is, for example, when you have a table, then a user can say, I want to have this column there and that column there. I want to sort it like that and so on. So a user can personalize their user experience to a certain degree. And after that, key users can use flexibility services, for example, where they can change a little bit about the look and feel, like hide something, show something, and so on, and provide these application variants to their users. Or what customers can also do if they are a developer, they can build adaptation projects and so on to also do a little bit of programming. And if they want to really go into depth, they can either enhance SAP build controls, like a table that SAP has provided you, or they can build their own ones with a custom UI, with custom HTML and so on. So these help for customers to tailor their either pre-existing controls or add new functionalities to their UI that was, for example, not yet provided. So they can build custom things, they can enhance existing things. You can really go into depth with that. And we've also provided 2 examples in our book where you can extend the control to add additional functionality and to build your own control with custom UI, custom HTML, and so on.
Interesting. So we have a question that just popped in. If we go by Fiori element and found that the CDS annotation is not working, then can we go pro mode of building without redoing the entire app?
To a certain extent, yes. So if you have an SAP Fiori Elements application that, first of all, only is defined by the backend annotation, and when you run into a wall of things that you can't do anymore in the backend, you can do a few steps. First of all, you check if the thing that you want to do is available by local annotations or through the usage of the guided development, which is a guide in Visual Studio Code or in the Business Application Studio for certain enhancements that you can do. Then you can do that. If that isn't sufficient enough, then you must need to go into Pro Code by enhancing your application in certain points. So SAPUI5 in the backend of the, or in the back of the Fiori Elements application provides you a few places where you can integrate Pro Code, where you can change something, where you can rework something. So there is possibility to do that, but especially these enhancements that take a lot of in-depth knowledge of how SAPUI5 and Fiori Elements works.
So if you guys had like a wish list of where this was going and what would be like the, what's the newest thing that you think is going to happen like next year? What would you like say? Where do you think all this is happening next year? What do you think is going to be like the new thing that everybody's going to be looking for?
So maybe we need to start with one. So my wish was already fulfilled as when flexible programming model was introduced, because back then you had really this strict line between pro code and low code development, and customers and also partners like we are supporting our customers at creating business applications. We're really seeking for an opportunity to switch between low code and pro code, and that's exactly what this flexible programming model supports. So you do have your floor plan, which you have decided for, but then you can easily switch to a so-called custom page, and they are built SAPUI5 freestyle components or so-called building blocks, which are formerly known as smart controls. And so therefore that was a big wish, and this got fulfilled. So I'm for the next few years I'm fine with this.
Well, with SAP, they're just going to change the naming of everything, and it'll be the same
Okay,
thing.
but this is this is business as usual. So
I'll just call it something else, the ultra coding or something like that. What about you, Max? What would be your wish?
Maybe performance. Well, the performance of SAPUI5 over the years got a lot better than it used to be, but SAPUI5 still is a more heavier, more load or more performance heavier framework than, for example, Angular and so on, because it has a lot of things already pre-built. And I hope that this gets a little bit more streamlined, a little bit more performant, because it is still in the heads of customer that SAPUI5 is slow. Other things are fast. So I hope that there are more changes done in this perspective to gain more of the customer's trust, to say, hey, we can build fast applications. They are modern, they look good, they feel good.
Yeah.
So yeah, performance.
What about you, Rene? What's your wish?
I'm happy as it is now. As Daniel mentioned, the flexible program model is quite a good framework, I would say. So I'm quite happy that this is available now, and yeah, Joule is also working quite good.
Yeah,
so all good for me.
There you go. So now you guys are all employees of, what's the name of your company?
Yeah.
CloudDNA, it is. Yeah.
CloudDNA. And
Yeah.
so where are you guys going to be? I mean, can anybody come and visit you? Are y'all going to be at a show or a conference or anything like that where people can actually come and visit you? Or
Well, if you want to go to deep rural Austria, you could visit us. We have great wines here.
I will take you on that.
But
Love to go to Austria. We were just talking about that earlier.
but the
Well,
next
if-
stop would be the Ticket in Berlin,
There you go.
where these two guys are.
Yeah,
That's
so
right.
we will
Ticket
attend
coming up.
Ticket. Yeah,
Mhm.
so we will be in Berlin, but I think it's also maybe a bit easier to meet us virtually because there are also a lot of opportunities. We do have SAP Press courses we provide together with SAP Press about all this stuff like SAP full stack development, SAP UI5 development, backend development using SAP Integration Suite. And also if you, because I already mentioned SAP Learning Hub, so if you do have the subscription, we are also trainers for SAP standard trainings, so in-person and live trainings, but also for so-called live sessions, which are the short 2 to 4 hour deep dive topics. So maybe I think virtual it's a bit easier to, and you don't need to book a flight to Austria.
Austria. No expense reporting for me. So you guys put a lot of effort into your book. I love it. I think it's great. So also for anybody, buy the book. I'll give you 15% off. Use Book Club 15 and you can get 15% off of their book, SAP UI5. And so, and also, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but on LinkedIn, you are, my granddaughter was the first picture of the book club and she was with your book and she's, I think she was a week old or 2 weeks old when I did the pictures. Everybody loved it. So y'all got a lot of views on that one. So
Wonderful.
anyway,
Right.
congrats on that one. And to me, love my little girl. So she'll be a lot more as we go on. But don't forget Book Club 15, get 15% off of the book. And so thank you guys for coming. And a lot closer here from North Carolina all the way to Austria doing this. And anytime, hopefully we'll get you in the top 10 list. Usually everybody who does this gets in the top 10 list with SAP Press. So
Wow.
fingers crossed on that one for y'all. But thank you again. And thanks for everybody for coming. And cheers. And well, that's it. Thanks. And
Thanks for having
next
us.
book
Yeah.
is
Yeah,
next
thanks.
month. We're going to have another one. So thank you very much. And again, I'm Kendall with SAP Press. Bye.
Thank you for having us. See ya.
Thanks a
Have a
lot.
good
Thanks from
one.
Bye.
Austria.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.